Hey guys, welcome back to Shutterbug Club. I'm your host, Sue, and today I'm bringing on someone who is not only a fully booked senior photographer, but also an amazing businesswoman who has turned her photography into a thriving business. She's built an insanely successful senior rep team, and she knows exactly how to make money working with seniors, but she also helps other photographers do the same. So, we're going to dive deep into senior rep teams, or as I like to call them, senior model teams. We're going to talk about what they are and how you can start using them to grow your business and bring in more income. So, if you've ever wanted to work with seniors in a way that boosts your bookings, then this episode is for you. Grab your coffee or your drink of choice and get ready to take some notes. I am so excited to welcome Jenna Lesoeur to the podcast.
Hey, I can't wait to get started and be here with you guys. It's super fun. Super excited.
So, I actually met, or not met, I've never met Jenna in person, but I found Jenna about a year ago, and this is because I had started my very first senior rep or senior model team, and I had no idea what I was doing or what I was talking about. And so I found her on Instagram, and she was just sharing so many tips and so much content about her senior model team. And I was like, what is she doing? I have to talk to her. I have to figure out what she's doing because she looks like she knows what to do with this. And so I started following her, and she actually launched a course to help photographers with senior rep teams. And so I joined her course, and I have learned so much from Jenna, and she has really helped me transform my senior model team. So I am so excited to talk with her today all about seniors and earning money as photographers. So, Jenna, why don't you go ahead and just give us a little introduction and kind of tell us how you got into photography?
Okay, will do. First of all, let me just say I have loved watching your senior rep team grow. I think any senior who has a chance to have you take their senior photos is so, so lucky. And that's one of the main reasons I started that program because I want more high school seniors out there to have these incredible photographers who care, about their senior photos and have really creative ideas. So super cool. Love it, love it, love it. Yes. So hi guys, my name is Jenna. I actually kind of became a photographer by accident a little bit. I noticed how a lot of people, have you ever heard when, photographers are sharing their journey, they'll say something like, I have been picking up cameras since I was a little kid, and so and so in my family was a photographer. I actually sort
Yes.
of stumbled into photography by way of video. So I randomly really liked watching VH1 music videos when I grew up. I am a millennial, okay, so if I just exposed myself, there we go. But I used to listen to songs and always think like, why am I thinking of a full-fledged like 12 scene music video in my head right now? And so when I was in high school, I was deciding where I wanted to go to school. Should I study business? Should I study film? And ended up studying business, but always had in the back of my head, like if I could work with cameras and just create videos in some capacity, I would be super excited. So in college, to make a long story short, I did end up purchasing a camera, but I was using it to make videos for small business owners to make an extra buck in college. So I contacted doctors, offices, really just anybody who needed something for their website because, mind you, websites were, they weren't like new. I'm not that old, but they, like older generations, like weren't sure how to kind of connect like the video and the marketing and the social media element at that point.
Oh,
So
yeah.
was making a lot of videos doing that. And then when I was a senior in college, my roommates, we all had our caps and gowns, and one of my roommates was like, "Hey, I know you have that camera. Do you think you could take some like photos of me on campus?" And I was like, "I mean, I'll try." I had never been trained in photography. I'm like fully self-taught. So I always say it's my happy accident that I ended up being in this kind of avenue where I can use business skills that I've learned through schooling and just through work experience, but really to grow this photography business to what I think is its full capacity.
Yeah, that's so cool. So after you took those pictures, did you kind of realize that you liked photos, or when did you kind of switch from video to photo?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be honest, that first shoot was kind of a mess. You got to get really bad at something before you get really good at it. And sometimes I look back just to like, reminisce. But I wouldn't say that it was like an instant kind of like, wow, this is what I want to do. But it did click to me that when I took those photos and started posting them, I had a lot of people coming to me. So the idea of like word of mouth started to become very real at that point because even without marketing it much, just by taking my roommate's photos, is like three more people would be like, hey, I saw her pictures. Can you take ours? And then from each of those people, three more leads. And it started to like kind of form, like in my mind, I thought, okay, wait, so I could either keep working in contract with these medical professionals making videos, or I could start dabbling in these photo shoots throughout my life. And I will say, I want to be clear, like, I didn't at that moment just take off with photography. I actually graduated from college and took a 9 to 5 data analytics job. So I moved to LA. I was doing spreadsheets every day. It was like a marketing firm, and quickly realized in less than a year that I was a little, the creative bug that lives in all of us as photographers, I just think comes out in some way or another. And actually, this is such a random side note, but me and my friend used to have a Google Doc that we would like type in real time at work for each other. And sometimes I'll go back and I literally would tell her how I was, I think I'm going to leave this job. It's just not. And that was in like 2017 when Instagram was just like the prime time, and I was working with a lot of influencers doing photo shoots on the weekend. So I would get, leads and DMs, and people were like, hey, can you come to this building and we're going to shoot on the rooftop? And I was just doing a lot of balancing the corporate stuff and then the photography. And it just got to a point where, I started getting a lot more photo shoot opportunities. And I thought, let me just, if there's any time to try going full time, it's right now. So I left that job and moved home, and then things took off from there.
Wow, was it scary for you leaving the
Oh
job?
yeah. Oh yeah. Sue, I remember the Starbucks. I could drive there now without a GPS. Like I remember the Starbucks I was sitting in when I was calculating, okay, this is how much money I have in my bank account. Like how much rent can I pay on savings alone if this business makes me like $0? So it was definitely scary. And I'll be honest, sometimes I look back at that like version of myself and I was like, want to give her just like a little high five because I'm like, that was such a bold move. Like, and looking back now with clarity, of course, it's easy to think that that was the right decision, but I can empathize that when you are in a position where you're trying to weigh out your actual real life options, does this make sense for me, my family? Does this like align with my short-term and my long-term goals? It's not an easy choice to make, but I think that there's something to be said about that kind of gut feeling that you have. Like, at least for me, I knew that there was just something more. Like, I just had a sense that I'm going to at least give this a real try before I kind of settle into what I thought were more like conservative options.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you for sharing that because it's so cool to see how far you've come and that you just took that leap. And it just seems like you're doing exactly what you're meant to be doing right now.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
I'm really curious, did you know from the start that you wanted to focus on seniors?
Definitely not from the very beginning. No. I think that in photography, niches kind of reveal themselves to you over time. And for me, like most photographers, I was just, if somebody was going to pay me money to go out there and take pictures, I was down. I was like, yes, I
Yes.
will go take pictures of your pet. I will take pictures of your daughter's second birthday party. I will take pictures of the proposal. I will hide in a bush and dress up like a grandma. Like legit, I did it all. Okay, for reals,
Yes.
I did. And like I think that's so important. I think that even though today where I stand, I 100% am a niche person. Like I can talk about that till I'm blue in the face about why I think that it's really powerful to niche down in photography. However, the foundation of knowing which niche you want to go into starts with experimenting and trying out the different niches that you like. And I was doing, weddings for a little bit. Like I said, some couples photography, some poses, but it was seniors where I started to feel like this is actually very, very fun for me. I would not get as, that like pre-shoot butterfly feeling.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think we all know that one well. That was when I worked with seniors, when I had a senior on the calendar, that's when I felt the most at ease. Like I just knew it was going to be fun. I knew it was going to go well. There wasn't as many variables to think about in the same way that I thought that there was variables for a wedding day or goodness, like a proposal where you just don't know if he's going to get down on one knee in the spot that you thought he was. Your heart is like beating out of your chest. Even with couples, like you're working with two subjects instead of one. And with families, you have several subjects, where seniors, you have one. And so it revealed itself to me over time. Like if I can do seniors full time, I would be so excited about that. And hello, seniors, it's like, I mean, I could walk around with like a stamp across my forehead, like you should niche into senior photography, because I genuinely think that it's one of those niches where it's unique in the sense that every single year you get a fresh group of leads. I mean, every year there's a new graduating class, and it's just such a bountiful niche. I love it so much.
Yeah, you just completely explained how I feel. I've never really thought about that like anxiety and the ease, but that is also what drew me to seniors because I think it's partly the time of life that I'm in right now, but I just connect with seniors so much. And I would get so anxious before weddings. Like, I still love weddings, but I just get that
Mhm.
anxious feeling. And so I have been wanting to niche down in seniors for such a long time, but I've just had this belief that you can't be a full-time photographer on just seniors because I would take like I started taking weddings like, oh, I need some money, I should try and find a wedding. And finding you really helped open my eyes that you can be a full-time photographer with just seniors.
And not just a full-time photographer with seniors, but you can make the same amount of money, if not more, from being a senior photographer as a wedding photographer. That's like a common misconception that when I'm working with students, it's like everybody, and you even actually just made a great point. It's like, oh, I need to make some money. Let me go find some weddings. Like, if I want to make, money I can live off of, that's the direction I need to go in. But that's just not necessarily true. I mean, with portraits, especially when you do become so focused and so specialized that you have a lot of authority in the space, that's when you can start to charge premium prices. And then whether you like the volume at which you want to book, that's where you get to have fun with it. You can be in a season of life where you're like, hey, I want to start a family, I want to pull back a little bit, and you can still hit your income goals. Or you could be in a season of life where you're like, we really want to buy our first property or our second property. Like, let's just like crank up the volume. That becomes possible and unlocked when you are an authority in your field and when you have the right pricing structure so that, you don't get burnt out from shooting too much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Okay, can you explain what a senior rep or senior model team is?
Of course. Okay, so basically, to put it very, very simply, a senior rep team is a group of local students, so they're either in your area or in the surrounding area, that jump on to your senior photo calendar for their graduating year, and then they represent you throughout their senior year. So it's almost like having like a built-in team of ambassadors. That's why it's also known as, an ambassador team, a model team, a rep team. I personally refer to it as a rep team. And not only is it a really great way to market your own business, but it's also a really great way to have content that you can continuously post throughout the year. So because you are so good at creating like these fun photo shoot concepts, you have outfit ideas. I mean, most photographers know you can barely go on a road trip without driving past something and being like, that would be such a good photo spot. So by having a rep team, you get to use that to your advantage, because anytime you have like a fun out of the box creative idea, rather than you doing it just to, post a video or create content, you actually get to do it with these group of students who are just so happen to be, best friends with your ideal clients. Do you see how like that connection is so, so powerful? So really it's a marketing strategy, and it's a way to create content so that you never feel like you're going to run out of things to post. And not that you would ever run out of things to post, but specifically run out of things to post that directly help you bring more qualified leads into your world.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that content part because it truly does make marketing so much easier. It's almost like effortless, and you're just posting the things that you love to do. So, yeah, can you go through your senior rep or senior model program and just kind of tell us what all you include?
I legitimately could talk about this for the next 10 hours. So I will try to keep it kind of summarized so in a way that's easy to remember and in a way that's easy to turn around and like apply into their businesses or into your businesses as you're listening. So there's this framework, and I wrote about this in a blog post. I have a lot of blog posts that I've written about reps, which we'll link for you guys. But really, I use this, it's like a 4D framework, and I use it in every single part of my senior rep program. And the 4Ds are discovering, deciding, designing, and distributing. So I'll break them down here. This is how you are going to be able to design your rep program from like a high level overview. Like if you were to zoom out and be like, okay, what does this look like from the start of my senior season or like senior year to the end, which is going to depend on the area you live in, the most popular months of photographing for senior photos. And so not only is this going to help you with that overview, but it's also going to be a little strategy that you can use every time you sit down to plan a group shoot. If you're trying to choose the outfit concepts, if you're trying to come up with like gift ideas for your senior rep team, these 4Ds apply across the board. So let's break it down. So discover, right? This is really where you get to sit down, put on your headphones, light a candle, and pull up your Pinterest board. Pull up a Google Doc, pull up a spreadsheet. This is where we do the planning, which is absolutely essential for a successful senior rep team. So discovering, like for example, if you were like, okay, let's sit down and do the discovery part of planning my team. This is where I would recommend doing your annual calendar planning. I have a whole, as you know, we have like a whole lesson on that inside of Rep It, but you get to decide as a business owner and as a photographer which months you want to be, putting in extra work and which months you want to take off. Maybe you want to go on a month-long vacation. Maybe you want to take off 3 months just to be with your family. Like you get to design all of that ahead of time. And with a rep team, it is so important. I teach, and this is not true of like every method for rep teams, but the way that I teach it is that I recommend planning out your entire year before you even recruit your first rep. And some people are like, well, how could I pick, a shoot date and the theme and the location? Like from the very beginning, how am I going to plan a shoot that's 10 months ahead? Listen, as far as dates go, you just pick out of a hat and hope for the best. I may or may not be known to check the weather of like average historical weather patterns. I'm like, what does November 9th usually look like in this area? But the reason that's so helpful is because it's going to make sure that when you are recruiting your reps, that they know exactly what they are signing up for. Okay. Now, in terms of like an actual photo shoot, maybe you're sitting down to plan one of those. Let's talk about what the discover phase looks like there. That is where you're pulling Pinterest concepts together just to see what you want the theme of the shoot to be. You might sit down in this phase and say, I already know I want it to be coastal cowgirl. I already know I want it to be flower field. I already know this and that. But you also want to like take it a step further and kind of add your unique spin on it. So that's where you're going to sit down and make a little board, get the outfits together. And I always like to come up with kind of a cute, I don't know, like theme for the name. So like I've done things like Desert Days, Bear Beauty, Golden Girl. You come up with almost like a story behind who these senior reps that you have on your team are going to be emulating during the photo shoot. So that way it kind of gives them
I
like a
love that.
direction of what, yeah, it's super fun. I even one year like did a uptown downtown was like the two outfits that we wore, and we created a persona for each one. So like the downtown girl, we're like, she's, interning at this company and she's on her way to get ramen and she's listening to this person in her, her Apple headphones or whatever, like really describing her. And then
That
the
is so
Uptown
cute.
Girl, yeah, the Uptown Girl were like, she's rewatching Gossip Girl on Netflix and like, really like getting into character. So,
So, really quick about that, do
yeah.
you like send that story to your seniors or do they help you come up with it?
No, so this is like where you as the photographer get to just like have fun. I mean, listen, one thing
Okay.
I'll say is like business is supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? We're out
Yeah.
here to make some money. We're out here to, hit our goals, and we're creative and we can bring those fun ideas into the world. Now, I do share it with the girls though. So
Okay.
yeah, so there is a really important document that you want to send out before each group photo shoot, and that is where I'll include all of those fun kind of details. So that's discover. That's the first D. And then the second, third, and fourth are pretty straightforward. So the second D is deciding. So there is a moment when you're planning your rep program where it's like, okay, you know what? I just got to make a decision. And what's interesting about the word decision is it actually means to cut off. So really, when you are faced with like one, two, three, four, five different dates, themes, venues, you make a decision, you cut them off, and you never think about it again. Just move forward. Indecision when you're planning something as full as a senior rep team can be one of the things that makes it not as light as it can be. So make your decision on how many shoots you want to do, when you want to do your consultation calls, all that fun stuff. And then that's going to really set you up for a really crystal clear team that, again, your reps and their parents are going to know what's all included before they go ahead and sign up with you. D is design. So this is where you're designing that document I mentioned that you'll send out before the shoots. D is also where you're designing the shoots for the year in general. You're picking the months you want to do your group photo shoots in. And then also, of course, you're mixing in those group photo shoots, which, if I haven't made clear, group photo shoots are basically the added value that senior reps get access to because they signed up to do their senior portraits with you. So when you're planning your year, you really want to make sure that you're working in tandem with the fact that they're not only going to the group shoots, but you have to set aside time for their solo photo shoot as well.
That was something I didn't realize when I started my first teams was that basically the group shoots are just all bonus. A lot of people do it like that. So
Yeah.
I actually set up my package where it was like everything was included and then I set the price for that instead of making it as like a bonus. And so I've completely structured it this year thanks to your course and learning from you where it's like they just pay for their senior photos and then everything else is a bonus.
You gotta keep it, yeah, so simple. I think that is probably like the number one thing that I would put photographers in jail for is overcomplicating the heck out of our packages. Simplifying is the easiest way to scale, period. And yeah, like as you know, it's like with your senior rep program, there's so much. Should I do a rep fee? Should I do it for free? Which the answer to that is absolutely not. Absolutely not. Not only for your sake, but trust me, your clients, like they need to be paying in order to like really be motivated to get the full experience out. Otherwise, when people don't pay, they don't pay attention. And I promise you, if you're recruiting your reps for free, you're probably also experiencing, people who don't show up or people who have a lot of questions. It's like it's a benevolent thing overall to be charging and to really just make it so that, hey, you guys are regular clients, but you get access to all these fun things. Why? Because they arrived and they're signing up with you early. So it's almost like rewarding them for being there and really being like some of your most eager and excited leads. It's like this is a win-win-win all the way around because they want to work with you. You would love to have them be ambassadors. And then, yes, you have to invest in all of these extra things that you do for them, like all the group shoots, if you have merch that are sending out. But when priced properly and at a high enough price point, it's well worth the investment because these are the people who, even if it's not like a super direct referral, that's another myth that I hear a lot about reps is that like, oh, they're not repping. They're not actually sending me referrals or I didn't get one lead from this person. the way I look at it is it's like, this is not about counting how many people they bring in. It's actually your job completely to do the marketing, but you kind of tee them up to do the marketing for you. So like, that's like you creating content and posting it and tagging them. And then there you have it. It's so easy for them to just, go ahead and repost it. And we cannot discount the fact that even if they're not saying, hey, you should book your photos with so-and-so, make sure, you mention my name, they're still posting content about working with you. They're still talking to their friends about you in class, saying, we have a photo shoot this weekend. We're going to this really cool location. Like, even if new leads come to you and they never mention that they talked to a rep, chances are they've probably seen something of a friend who was part of a rep event that you did. So you really, I think, just like pulling away from the assumption that like their job is to bring you leads, and just like fully give your all to the program, knowing that it'll trickle down into just your brand just growing, and like your presence of your brand being talked about.
Yeah, I love that. And I think really, like you said, you're just creating the excitement. You're giving them something to talk about where it's effortless for them. You're not telling them, you need to represent my brand, you need to bring in these clients. They do it regardless because they're like, I can't believe I have this opportunity to do this.
Yes, and that is the magic spot to be in, where it is that win-win, where the client, the rep, feels really excited that they're part of a program. You are so thankful that they're with you, for the long haul. It's like, this is like such a positive relationship. So the question is, how do we get people to apply to be reps early enough? Because what I see a lot of is people saying, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a rep team. Let me post a story and say, hey guys, I'm starting a rep team. Applications are open, and I'll call you in 2 weeks, to talk about it with your mom. What I, as you know, teach is like a 3-year plan, where the first year is like, this is our rep ramp. The year one is like, just get some people on your team. I don't care if it's your little sister or her friend, or, I had a stint coaching cheerleading at a local high school to make some extra money when I was first getting started in all of this, in between that corporate job leaving. And that naturally brought leads and seniors into my world. So the first year is just like, do something, anything. It doesn't have to be a big team. But as soon as you have any like semblance, is that the word I'm looking for? Any semblance of a rep program, that is when you want to immediately start not only promoting your senior rep bookings and saying, hey, as you can see with these senior reps, we do really cool senior photos. Like, you should totally sign up for your senior session with me. But on the other side of that coin, you also want to be saying, and if you are a freshman, sophomore, junior, you should apply to be on my team. Because that is how, after time goes on, when it's finally time to sit down and say, whoop, okay, let's go ahead and plan next year, you pull up a list, you already have all these applicants. That is not the time to start recruiting. That is the time to like nurture your applicants already.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. We talked about your 3Ds. Do we want to go over the fourth D?
Oh, yes,
Right?
sorry. Oh my gosh,
Okay,
I
no,
forgot.
that's okay. That's okay.
And then lastly, the fourth and the final D for senior rep creation is distribute. So this is when you are sending things out to your clients and communicating to your clients, which is such an important step in this program, because you could have the most incredible photo shoot themes, the most locked in annual calendar, like the budget's on point, but if you cannot communicate the value of what you offer to these applicants and their families, you are going to have a hard time recruiting people. So the distribute portion is where you're having calls with your clients, where you're sharing materials with your clients, and really just getting very, very good at communicating the value of what they will receive as part of being in this program. Now, that's true of the overall view, of like recruiting your team. And it's true of like even something as simple as sending out the information or an invitation to a holiday party. You really want to get crystal clear at communication, and just making that fourth D, the distribute, like sending things out as such a part, like as such a basic part of what you do. And it might seem so obvious, but you really want to get super good at almost over communicating things, because that usually answers people's questions before they even pop up.
Yeah, that's so good.
So the 4 Ds are discover, decide, design, and then distribute.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great framework for people looking to set up their senior model team and just really get it going. So, how many photo shoots do you give these girls?
So the amount of photo shoots that I typically do, I have done it in a range, and it really depends on the year. So in my longest or biggest year, I think we did 7 different group photo shoots. And then so I'm somebody who calculates budget like to the penny. So I'm always tracking like, okay, how profitable was this? How much money did we spend? How much money approximately do I think was brought in from regular bookings from the rep team, things like that. And what I realized was the more shoots that we didn't necessarily lead to better results in terms of conversions with regular clients. So that was interesting because
That is really interesting
yeah,
actually.
it was like almost like, okay, I thought that, doing more photo shoots would mean more opportunities to post. It would mean more pictures being delivered. So therefore, more marketing going out. But I actually decided to pull it back because I thought, you know what, maybe we can do slightly larger shoots less frequently. There'll be less costs on my end of booking venues, figuring out wardrobe and props and all of that stuff. And on the same note, by the way, it's also true that the more people, it's not true. Okay. It's also true that it's okay to have a smaller rep team, and that a humongous rep team really does not mean that it's a better representation. In fact, I do believe that there is a point where having too many reps will dilute the experience and dilute your profit margins as well, because you do want to make sure you have room in your calendar for external bookings, so like non-rep bookings. And some people go about the route of saying like, hey, I'm just going to make every single student that I book on my rep team. So maybe you've seen people who have like 40 students and they're like all reps, and therefore like their whole year is just booked with senior reps. But I actually like to make reps very exclusive. Like it's a very small group of people that get in at this huge value. They're still paying a regular price, but they're getting so much on the back end as well. And then anything outside of that is a little bit more simple in terms of the time spent. So with a regular client, you're not considering them in for the group shoots. You're really focused on their individual session, and those sessions can sometimes be 2, 3, 4 times even more higher sales than what you signed up your reps for.
Okay, that's a really good point. Have you found like a sweet spot of number of reps that you like to have?
Yeah, I always say my sweet spot is anywhere between, like, if I could build my perfect team, it would probably be between 6 and I was gonna say 10, but like 6 and 12 probably. Like
Okay.
12. I think 12 is like a very 12. I typically don't. I have more than 12 this year just because they were just all so cute and amazing, and I couldn't stop recruiting. But I would also be very happy with like 6 really cool students. Like I think you can
Okay.
do a lot with that. Listen, my first one was 2, and then I had them each bring a friend. So I was like, hey, now we have 4, and it was very casual that first year. It was very scrappy, but I know, I think you and I have even talked about how like, oh, what do I do if like, even sometimes you'll have a big team, but for a certain shoot, you can only get 2 who can make it. So in that case, you're like, is it
Mm-hmm.
even worth doing? It's like, absolutely. First of all, it only takes one person to represent your business. So you could have a shoot with 1 rep. So definitely don't let that stop you. If you're like, it's just hard to get a big group, the more is not the merrier in this case, because you want to be thinking about cost per rep as well. And typically, I would say 6 to 8 is like magic. You don't have to rush as much during those photo shoots because you only have 6 or 8 people to photograph rather than 12 to 15 to 20. So that's where I would say the sweet spot is 6 to 12. I know it's kind of a big range, but anywhere in there is great.
Okay. So, do you do like a meet and greet like photo shoot where all of your teams meet each other? Because I know in the Repit course you talked about how you would say, I'm offering like 4 group photo shoots and you can choose to come to 3 of the 4. So it's
Mhm.
like if you do have a big team, then you can have more time with each individual person instead of trying to get everyone together. But do you do like photo shoots with everyone there?
So are you saying for the welcome event specifically, do I do like
Yes.
actual like team photos there?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Again, over the years, and this is what's so great about being in business and what we call it getting our reps in, no pun intended, because not about like getting actual reps in, but I'm talking repetitions reps. It's like every time you do a repetition of something, it's like, okay, now I see this. Okay, now I've learned that. Okay, that makes more sense. And so over the years, I will say, I used to not even have a welcome event. It was just like my first shoot was like, hey guys, here, let me introduce you to everybody, which is fine too. But in more recent years, anytime I do like a community or group event, I realize that those events are really not so much about portraits. Those events are about those girls or guys connecting, getting to know each other, being in a safe environment where they can have fun and make new friends, which is one of the biggest parts of being a senior rep is like you're connecting these people whose worlds may have never crossed because you know how high school is like usually you're just in your world of your actual school. It's rare that you just go meet a senior from the school down the block or down the way or whatever.
And it's
Um,
always a little awkward at first, like when they haven't
it
met each other.
You guys, 100%. Like, if you're wondering why, like, am I supposed to be making sure everybody's friends and happy? One thing about teenagers is like, they like being on their phones, whatever. And sometimes you just got to give them a little time to warm up. That is also why I like to make sure that at events, there's always activities to do outside of the photos. Like, music playing, obviously, as we know, is so important, but I will literally put out like not board games, but like those conversation cards.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay.
Yeah, just to like they just want to be not told what to do, but you don't want to have them be like, so, like, tell me about yourself. You want to make it so easy so that they're just like, oh, look, a conversation card. Or like we even had a shoot out in the desert recently, which for us out here in California is like very, very cute. I know a lot of people are like based in the desert, but we're super excited about that. And we got this like tic-tac-toe game where it's like a big thing that you like lay out on the floor and it's like a beanie bag kind of toss. So again, my thought is always like, yes, I'm going to be busy working with the actual clients, but what's happening and who's facilitating activities when I'm not there? And that's for parents too. So I always like to include parents if they do plan to join the shoot. Like I don't want them to feel like they're just like an afterthought. So I always try to make it so that the parents feel like they have a place to rest. I like to mention, hey, there's going to be Wi-Fi if you want to bring your laptop and get some work done. Like really like going that extra mile and just like thinking about these people, every single person who's there, and not just you or the rep getting photographed or, the reps not being photographed, but like the parents. So to answer your question, like back to the welcome event, I do not treat it like this is a formal photo shoot. No. But I do like to document it, of course, because I would argue like reps, let's say there was like older versions of rep teams and modern versions of rep teams. I honestly think that back, I don't know, to 2012 and earlier maybe, it was very emphasized on the images because video content was not really a thing as much back then. So as a photographer, you could just really, really emphasize like, oh, you get a picture here, you get a picture here, a picture here. And the girls were so excited about it. But now it's like they get pictures taken all the time. Like maybe not professionally, but they're constantly looking at pictures of themselves. So the question is like, how do we still, obviously like our portraits are a little more elevated and unique and everything, but how do we also deliver documentation and like moments captured in other ways? So I always like to bring a little digital camera, a little disposable camera to those kinds of events. Obviously, grabbing videos on your iPhone. I have found that reps are more likely to share those things like 10 times over than they are going to be posting their own pictures these days. So,
That is so interesting.
yeah, you'd almost be doing yourself a disservice to just be like, let's take more pictures, like on my camera, on my camera.
And do you feel like that's when they really bond too? That's when like the connection happens?
100%, Sue. That's actually a really good observation because think about it. Like when we were in high school, it's like when you don't know someone, but then you're all like standing together for a group photo. It's like suddenly like you have a little bit more of like a bond versus like you going over to the corner to take your pictures and then they come into the corner to take their pictures. That's why like doing that activity and then just documenting it. It's like, I'll give you another example. So this year, my the meet and greet, we were like, okay, should we do a painting backyard thing where we put little canvases up and have them paint? And we decided like that's probably going to be a little too expensive. Like we ran the numbers. We're like, I don't know.
Mm.
Then we found this cute local bead shop where you can just make phone charms, necklaces. And what was so great about a venue like that is the venue's like taken care of. You don't have to set anything up. They automatically have this huge selection of beads. Like we don't have to order anything. It was right next to the beach, so it was like a beautiful location where we could just walk down to the beach and take some pictures. Was it an investment? Yes. Did I buy everybody's jewelry? Yes. But I knew that like that moment where I gave them their sweatshirts for the first time, where they were sitting side by side and, you know, clamping their little charms onto their bracelets, like that was the foundation of the year for a lot of these people. And next thing you know, I'm starting to notice they're commenting on each other's posts, like hyping each other up. Next time we go to a group shoot, they're giving each other hugs. I'm like, this is how you just create this environment where you don't have to like be like, hey, you talk to this person and you just like create an environment where they can come in, they have something to do. They call it like a shoulder to shoulder activity in marriage. Fun fact. Like shoulder to shoulder. It's like when you do something like side by side, it's like interesting how it very much bonds people together, even if they're not face to face with each other. But it's like a very effective kind of way to bond people. So I would say, hey, if you're going to plan a welcome event, don't worry so much about like, oh, they're going to want pictures. I guarantee you, like, just give them a fun activity to do and document the heck out of it. And then you're on your way for like a really buzzy year after that.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake I made in my team because my very first model team, I just got super lucky and the girls all connected so well. Like every photo shoot was so much fun. I could not get them to stop talking. I'm like, okay, guys, we have to take
Okay.
pictures.
That's
But
funny.
my team this year, everyone's a little bit shyer and I didn't have activities because I was like, we're just going to take pictures and everyone's going to have fun. And I wasn't able to get the girls to bond as well because
Mhm.
I was missing like that activity, that bonding moment for them.
Yeah.
So,
I love, Sue, how you're one thing you are so, I mean, you're so good at many, many things, but you are like so observant and you're already learning and you're gonna like just quickly adapt because you're like, oh, one mistake I made was this. And it's like, there you go, you got your repetition in, and now you know that we're gonna be adding an activity. So that's really, really good. That's what it takes too, is like not so much trying to make it perfect the first time around, but now you have 2 years under your belt, and like year three is going to be, you know, best one yet. Yeah,
yeah.
activities are super important for sure.
You mentioned we talked about this a little before off the podcast, but there's like this jumping off point where
Mhm.
you're like taking senior photos, taking photos, but you're not really making money and you're just kind of wondering like what am I missing? How do I make money as a senior photographer? Can you talk about that?
Can I talk about that? Of course. I would love nothing more. I believe that there are two like major distinct forks in the road for photographers, maybe even three. But we'll start with these two. So the first fork in the road that a photographer experiences, and this is after they've had like a couple of years just to like get good at photography. Like we all know that in those first years, like the first year or two, it's just like practicing, shooting, building your portfolio, learning manual, all that good stuff, editing. And then I believe there's the specialization fork. Okay, so this is where you're asking yourself, hey, how come I'm really really anxious before weddings, but I really really enjoy working with seniors? Might it be a good idea for me to take this road down this way and really go all in and specialize in becoming like one of the go-to senior photographers in my area? Now, not every photographer is going to take that opportunity or like go down that road. Some people are like, no, I want to do all kinds of photography. I'm still trying to figure that out. But this is where the second fork comes in, because there's also a time later on in your business where if you do get really, really good at a certain kind of niche, you're going to have a jump off point opportunity. So rather than a fork, this one's almost like a staircase. It's like you can go up, and that different like jumping off point is when it's time to scale. So that's when it's like, okay, I am a photographer. I am a creative person. I do have cool ideas, but I really want this to be a business. Like, I really know that photography can be this vessel for wealth in my life and for the life of my family. We're talking like generational wealth, paying off debt, having medical comfort, never having to worry about stuff like that. These are all really big, very real options as a photographer. And I personally believe that you have to pass through the first fork, which is specializing, before you get the chance to go up that staircase, which is scaling. If you look at a lot of really successful photographers, most of them are really good at one kind of thing. There will be super successful luxury wedding photographers who like specifically travel for work. There will be really well-known, renowned headshot photographers, like specifically for a certain kind of look for their headshot that people will pay thousands of dollars for one image for. There are really successful senior photographers, boudoir photographers. And it's rare that you see those people who are like doing big numbers in their business be people who do like 5 or 6 different types of photography. And there's a reason for that. And it's just simply because when you simplify your business, your focus becomes so much more concentrated and so many things come from that. I always like to say that there's this stat or fact or data point, or I'm not a science major, let's be real, but it says that a lightning bolt is only the width of a thumb when it hits the ground, but it is hotter than the sun. And when I first heard that, I'm like, that makes so much sense. It's almost like when you go to a tiny surface area, you become so much hotter and therefore you like leave a greater impact. Whereas if a lightning bolt, when it hits the ground, it's spread over like the length of like a football field or whatever, you can bet that the temperature is not going to be as hot. So, do with that information what you will. But for me, it proved and almost like further supported, like, if you are passionate about one type of photography, if it makes you feel good, if you really enjoy like doing those photo shoots and you get really positive feedback from those clients, I'm like, there's no reason that could not be your full-time gig. Now, where people are often like, well, wait a minute, because you're telling me I can go full-time with seniors, but like, how do I get that many clients in just senior photography so that I can do all these big numbers? Well, that is where the second like jumping off point comes in, the second fork or the staircase. And that is knowing how to have really, really good business skills so that you can not only raise your prices, but you can confidently communicate those prices without any kind of like weird energy of being like, I cannot, like, no one's going to book me if I charge this much. It's like confidently being able to say, this is the price and this is the value that you specifically are going to be able to get from that. When you specialize first and then you scale, like, and treat and kind of like leave behind the photography identity, the photographer identity, and go into more of like, I'm a business owner here and I'm not here just for fun. Like, I'm also here because I went into business to be profitable. Like, those two things is how I like to think of like a photographer's path from just getting started the first time you ever pick up your camera to the first year where you're like, oh my gosh, I need to sit down with my husband or my partner or call my mom and tell her like, I made so much money this year. Like, I can't even believe that this is real.
Okay, so how do you make 6 figures as a senior photographer?
Yes, the $1 million question, or really rather the 6 figure question, I suppose. So making that much money as a photographer, 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, is really a combination of the classic equation of like, how many shoots can I do and how much am I making per photo shoot, right? Everybody knows that's like the volume times the price or revenue equals, your annual revenue. But the way I like to look at pricing and the way that I have generated that much year over year, and this is like pretty consistent. It's not like there's any year where I'm dipping below 6 figures. It's pretty comfortable and pretty expected at this point. And the only reason for that is because there's a combination of things happening in the background that almost like feed into this machine of a business. There's many, many aspects of what makes a business work. Now, one of them is marketing. So we've talked a little bit about senior reps. And for a senior photographer, that is one very, very effective way to build your brand in the beginning of your photography journey. Not saying it's necessarily something you need to do for the rest of your photography journey, but if you're starting from, you're just starting your business and you want to get your name out there, the rep team is going to be a really good way to do that. There's obviously other ways to market your business. If you're in a different niche, like weddings, you can do SEO, paid advertisement. There are a whole bunch of ways to generate leads. Content, you're so good at creating leads through content yourself. And so that's one piece of the machine. And then the second thing is, once people do meet with you, how do we convert our leads into these luxury clients? Like, how does anybody who walk into our door, like, how do we explain to them that when they work with us, they're going to get all this amazing stuff, and then convince them, or really rather like show them the value of paying us 4 figures or more for a single photo shoot, and all of the things that includes. So that's the second piece, is having a client experience where your reputation precedes you. You're really, really good at telling people about what they get out of what they buy from you. And then the third piece, of course, is the money itself. So getting really, really clear on the profit that you currently sell, and not thinking about profit like, oh, let me look back at the end of the year and see how much I actually made. That's a big problem for a lot of photographers, is they work super hard. They often go towards like very, very close to burnout, if not past burnout. And then you look back at your numbers in your bank account and you're like, where did it go? Or I have to pay so much in taxes because I'm self-employed and I have a self-employment tax. And that's the piece where a lot of photographers just wait too long to consider profit. Whereas I teach that profit actually is the strategy. It's not a formula whatsoever. It is actually something that's built in from the top down. And it's so powerful because if you look at profit that way, any expense that comes your way, you actually kind of get like excited about it. I know that seems crazy. Okay, just stick with me here. But for a business owner, they understand that expenses are really, really good for business actually, but only if you are like in the driver's seat and knowing exactly where those expenses are going. But the reason I say expenses are so good is because expenses that kind of drain out of your business account can actually be regenerated and like added back into the top of your business if it's done correctly. And that's why like the order of your money management is so, so essential. So those 3 pieces, if I had to kind of put it in a nutshell: getting really good at marketing your business, nailing your client experience so that your clients are like happy to pay you, and often like, will tell their friends and family about you. Word of mouth referrals will become so regular in your business, to the point where you get an application and you're like, where did this person come from? How did this person from 5 states over like find me? Or how did this person from this high school that I've never worked at before, don't have a rep for, how did they find me? That's where the client experience comes in. And then getting your numbers right. It is, I think, more common than people realize to charge 4 figures or more for a portrait session. Whereas I know a lot of photographers are in that kind of $100 range. So maybe you're charging $300, $500, $800. But you can have a really tight system that is not only like profitable for you as a photographer, but even better is it's really easy for the client to understand too. Again, remember how we talked about in the beginning that like sometimes it can be a little complex. Y'all are going to jail if I look at your packages and I can't decide myself which one I want. You got to make it so, so easy for the clients to buy in, to work with you, and then later on to decide what it is exactly that they want to purchase from you.
Wow, that was such a great explanation. Thank you. Now, I think that's a really great way to kind of close up the episode. But before we do, would you mind answering a few questions from people who submitted them on Instagram?
Talk to me. Yes, let's do it.
So the first question is, how do you make your program stand out and make your models feel like it's worth it?
I love this question. I actually have a blog, literally how to create a standout senior rep program. So
Oh,
definitely
perfect.
go ahead and read that.
I
But
will link it.
yes, please. To summarize it, I actually asked myself this question, like, what makes a good rep team versus like an irresistible rep team? So that if a client or a senior is like, gosh, there's so many rep teams in my area, kind of like you've alluded to earlier, how are they making the decision about which one they want to join? So there's 4 things that you can do. One is to, what I say is like probe pop culture. Like always, always, always have your finger on the pulse of pop culture. that's just because teenagers in general, from like a psychology standpoint, are so plugged in to that at that age. As we get older, like we kind of don't pay attention to the Grammys as much, or we don't really know what's popular on the radio or on Spotify or whatever anymore. But if you are working with teens, you literally need to be like have a hat that you put on that's like, okay, today, right now, I'm thinking like a teenager. Read books about teenagers, like understand what it's like for Gen Z, what it's like for the generations after them. And in fact, that's the second point, is pinpointing the generation. So when you're thinking about designing your team, like really think about who are they now? Because I'm telling you, a millennial rep team is a lot different than a Gen Z rep team, and it's a lot different than a Gen Alpha rep team. Like you really are going to want to adapt to what they think is cool, because really what we're doing is building stuff that's like cool for them, because they're not going to share it if they think it's cringe or whatever, you know? So like you really want to be careful about the kinds of things you're saying or not saying, including or not including. So, you know, just go on social media and like just take some inventory. It's like, oh, interesting, in the comments, like just being really aware of like what's going on. Because if you think about it too, like even the parents of reps are different generations. They used to be boomers. Now you're getting a lot more millennial parents,
That's true. Yeah, I
you
go
know?
to a senior photo shoot sometimes and I'm like, "Oh, wow, I like can relate more to the parent than the senior now."
Yes, I know. Isn't that wild? And that can be as small as just being like the way you write the email to the parent, you know, or like little jokes you crack with the parent. Like you just want to be like zoned into that and like no. So that's like putting your finger on the pulse of the generation. Another thing to do is ask the audience, poll the audience. If you want to have a standout program, literally go on your stories and be like, I've gone on and voted on photo shoot concepts before, like come up with some cute collages and say, which one would you like to see next year? Not only does it make them feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm contributing to this team that I want to be on in the future, but if somebody is deciding if they want to join program A or program B, and then they see how cool the themes are, even subconsciously, they might in their mind be like, oh man, but she is going to the desert next year. Like I've really wanted to do that. So like maybe I will go ahead and join this one. And then lastly, another way to create a standout program is to have very subtle peekaboo product placement, is what I call it. So that can be merchandise, that can be cookies that you had a local bakery put together with your logo on it. There's all these studies of how these younger generations are very advertisement averse. Like they don't, if they see an ad in like 0.001 seconds, they're going to know that it's an ad. So you want to market to them in a way that doesn't feel or look like an advertisement. And so I like this year made sweatshirts for my team, and I didn't even like say like, you know, please post a picture, this and that, but it's like they're wearing them to school. You know, I myself took some photos and videos of it, and I had people asking for the sweatshirt that weren't even in high school. You know what I'm saying? So like it's a perfect, it's kind of like brand overkill. Like get your logo out there, but in a very cool, subtle way that makes people just kind of be like, wait, what is that? Wait, who, like, I see you wearing this sweatshirt. Like, what program is that a part of? That's a way to not only capture like people for your rep team, but also like, again, remember, we're thinking long term here. So that could be a freshman's first time ever hearing about your brand. They see the older senior girl in her history class wearing this sweatshirt, and they're like, I don't know who that is, but I'm going to go look it up. And then they apply. I mean, it's just like a flywheel effect.
Yeah, that's so good. I loved your sweatshirts, by the way. They were very cute.
Yeah. I have the most amazing person. She is an incredible artist, and she sketched it out. So always be looking for like local artists that you can support, or if you are really good at drawing yourself, just know like you can just do it on Canva, and then I had them printed at a local print shop, rather than printed.
Oh.
Yeah, rather than printed. I don't even remember why, but we did order the blanks. They call them blanks if you want to get like a regular sweatshirt, and then you can just take the design to a local shop, and then they make the screen print. It's like it was a whole thing. It was super fun to see.
Okay, yeah, I never thought about that. I would always just think like shipping them to a bigger
Yeah, and you
company,
could.
so that's really cool. Okay, next question is how do you communicate with your team?
Oh my gosh. Yes, communication. We love communication. So a couple different ways. Really two. That's it. One is a group chat on iMessage. If you don't have an iPhone, that has never happened to me, but that would be unfortunate. But there's a lot of different platforms that you could use for group chats. And then I also have communications within Honeybook. So I like to send any and all information about upcoming events that we have, whether it's a shoot or a holiday event or whatever, to both the senior and the parent. I think it's very important. It's actually this like kind of delicate kind of communication because seniors are very unique in the sense that you're working with the senior and the parent. And for so many reasons, you always want to make sure that the parent is fully aware of everything that's happening. So it can be easy to just like default to the group chat with all the girls or all your team members and just like do all the details there. But I like to do it double. So it's like anything I'm sharing with the group, if it's like logistical, I'll send an email and say like, hey, I just wanted to also loop you guys in over here on like what's coming up. But
Yeah.
typically like I try to keep the texting to more like just little updates. I like to do most of my communications via email.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad you said that you do text them too because I've found that the seniors aren't that great at replying to emails usually, so I'll have to like send them a message on Instagram like
Yeah.
make sure you know when our next photo shoot is.
Yeah, and that's just being, like thorough and you're so right. I sometimes they don't even respond on text either. So don't ever get they're just busy, they're just bopping around in their little lives. So, as long as you get the information across in at least two different ways, you're good.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Jenna. Can you share with us like what you're currently working on, what your plans are for the future?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me today. This has been so much fun. So right now I am working on helping photographers scale their businesses, and we have a really, really cool challenge where for 5 days we work together on talking about things like pricing, specializing, niching, and ultimately creating wealth in your life as a photographer. So you can connect with me on Instagram at JenRenPro and on my other Instagram account at JRP University, where we'll be doing a lot of fun education stuff over the next few months.
That's so exciting. I know I'm going to be joining in on some of that too. I
Yeah.
can't wait. Thank you so much, Jenna. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.